Secrets Safe with You left a good comment under my last video, questioning each of the elements in the video. I replied to his comment, and then I thought it might make a good video itself. So first, here's Secret's comment.
Great video. Glad you put this together. Had forgotten just how many there were. In an effort to qualify significance, I was just thinking these through. How are we sure the first woman shown who spoke to media is not the same woman who filled out the first referenced witness statement in this video? Hispanic woman in 50s, and shirtless 20-something cowboy hat wearing guy seemed like they fit the concert scene, and didn't the first girl who spoke to media report that they had been drinking? Sounding and looking like concert-goers who had been there a while, therefore making me wonder if they were carrying on about something else, or they knew so much about a planned attack that they partied up until it was time to warn people at the final minutes before the attack. Obviously I questioned this one. Second witness statement, white couple. I lessened the significance of this one. Third one, highly suspicious for sure. If we trust the 9:20 time, then 9 minutes later the room doors would become very active. Fourth witness statement, bus stop. Drunk street preacher. Same street preacher who was calling them all sinners before they entered the venue. 5 and 6 Uber. Tough to say. Terrorism on the brain and chatter about Vegas on the webs already prior to 10-1. 7. Tough to say. Word dude. Hugs and cares but doesn't report problem. 8. Wonder if it was a text message or an online chat message or from a conspiracy-related chat group.
That's the end of his comment, and now here's my reply. Hello SSWY. I can tell that the second witness is not Breanna because the description is a little different. They both say the couple was short, but Breanna says 5 feet 5 inches or 5 feet 6 inches. And the other witness says the woman was 5 feet 3 inches 180 pounds and the boyfriend was 5 feet 2 inches 160 pounds. There were other differences too, like the 50-something woman having a 20-something boyfriend wasn't mentioned by Breanna, and the witness added quite a few more details than Breanna, even though Breanna was specifically asked to describe them for the benefit of the police. All Breanna said was they just looked like everyday people. The other witness also said she thought the couple was trying to get security's attention, while Breanna said security removed them because they were making threats. There are just too many differences in my opinion for it to be Breanna. Also, I just added links to the PDFs in the description under the video, including links to Breanna's video and the Snopes article where she changed her story. Her mother is mentioned in the article as well, and while the mother didn't hear the woman herself, she says she overheard another man describing the threats. So it was perceived by multiple people as a threat, and there were multiple discussions about it. The two elements of the threat that are consistent in both Breanna's account and the other witness are that she was saying there are people all around, or you're surrounded, and she said you're all gonna die. Maybe it was unrelated, but at least Breanna and this one other witness thought it was related that night, shortly after the shooting. And there may have been more police reports that were not released, because Breanna and her mother both say they gave statements to the police, which I haven't seen. Breanna changed her story after less than 48 hours, partly because people on Facebook were calling her a racist for identifying the woman as Hispanic. Snopes asked her about that, and she said she was not motivated by racial or ethnic prejudice. In isolation, ignoring everything else, I find her initial, contemporaneous take more credible than her considered revision. Also, if you look at PDF 16, page 149, you'll see that they do have footage of the woman, and the officer who viewed that footage the night of, described her as the female who made threats prior to the shooting. He wrote that, on Friday, 10/6, as that's when the report is dated, and says he forwarded it to counter-terrorism. Obviously that doesn't prove anything, but it does show how the police were treating it and referring to it at the time. Regarding the white couple, I'll agree with you that it seems like the least significant of the bunch, but consider the source. It was a woman who got shot herself, and likely saw someone get killed right in front of her, being interviewed while still in the hospital at UMC, and she thought it was significant. The first thing she says about the white couple, right after describing how she escaped, was, "Can I say something that happened right before? We were standing next to this tall guy and this woman, and they were acting really, really weird." Are you familiar with the term contemporaneous documentation? It's a legal term that refers to notes or interviews that are made at the time or shortly after an event occurs, and are often considered admissible evidence because they represent the best recollection of what was witnessed. That's in contrast to later revisions, which are less credible, even though you've had more time to think about it, and received more input from external sources, like, for example, Lombardo's press briefings. On the TSA lady, what I think lends the most credibility to her account is that, after reporting it to the FBI twice, over the phone at midnight the night of the shooting, and again at the FBI offices on October 2nd, and feeling like they had brushed her and her boyfriend off, she went to the LVMPD 2 weeks later, on October 15th, to refile the report, write it out herself this time since the FBI never asked for a written statement, and complain about how the FBI had treated her and her boyfriend. I'll agree with you that the toothless bus stop preacher is not very credible himself, but it's the proximity of what he said to the first shots that I find so remarkable. The witness knows what time it was because of the bus schedule, and notice that he wrote in 10:03 p.m. as the time he encountered the man, 2 minutes before the first shots. Obviously he wouldn't be one of Paddock's accomplices, but he could have overheard other people talking about it, or perhaps he tried to save the soul of someone with foreknowledge, who then told him that hellfire was about to rain down on the rednecks across the street. Being drunk and crazy, he might have believed them. On the first Uber driver, read both of his statements carefully, and you can see him when he first approached the police in this video. There's a lot that I find interesting about Tony. He profiles as the quintessential accomplice, though probably not in the inner circle. Second Uber driver? There are 3 elements of interest in his recollection. 1. That his fare mentioned something about a terror attack. 2. That he drove them to the Mandalay Bay. And 3. That he thinks it might have been Paddock with a woman. Even if only 2 of the 3 are accurate, it's pretty significant. The man who hugs the ushers at the main entrance is weird, but if you understand my overarching theory, it fits. Workers at the festival were not the target fish, the attendees were. As for the text message, see my highlighted reply here. Quote, I suspect that the Mandalay Bay Pool Beach area was a prearranged meeting place for accomplices and others with foreknowledge who weren't necessarily in Paddock's inner circle, that is, wouldn't go straight to his suite. So yes, Tony and his girlfriend, the Uber fare, would have been there. End quote. Note also that Paddock had likely done a lot of texting, with 5 different cell phones he used personally, and more than 3,400 contacts, which includes calls and text messages, in the year leading up to the shooting. Plus Verizon said that SMS, text messaging content does exist and was preserved during the night of the declared emergency. Some have argued that it doesn't say the texts were sent during the night of the attack, just that they were preserved. But Paddock did have 3 cell phones, and a 4th which was not yet activated, up in his suite. And if you've watched my other videos and followed my theory on Twitter, you know that I think the evidence is most consistent with Paddock's preparations being interrupted by the appearance of a uniformed officer right outside his door, and that the original plan was scrapped at that point. The original plan would have been for a ground attack with sniper support for the first few minutes, right as the concert was letting out, closer to 11 p.m., so 10:05 p.m. was almost an hour early. If Campos was shot at 9:59 p.m. as I propose in 3 Illogicalities in the official timeline, then that could explain text messages announcing and warning that the shooting was about to start early. If the text went out right at 9:59 p.m. and the first audible volley was at 10:06 p.m., that could explain both the Harley guy's text message and the white couple dodging out of the fish barrel not even 10 minutes before the whole thing started. Cheers. F. That's the end of my reply. For your convenience, here is the original video being discussed. Links to the PDFs are in the description under this video too. Initially I thought the number of rifles indicated the possibility of 12 to 20 accomplices. Then in May of 2018 the witness statements started coming out, and I found several first-hand accounts that indicated the possibility of people who knew something was about to happen, but were not necessarily accomplices. At that point, I had to reassess my thinking as to how many people might have known about the attack ahead of time. Everyone's familiar with Breanna Hendricks, who changed her story under intense media scrutiny because it contradicted what the sheriff was saying. But we learned in May that she wasn't the only one who reported that incident. There was a different woman who reported that a Hispanic woman in her 50s near the stage said there are people all around and you're all going to die, and was then escorted out by security. There was the white couple who were acting suspicious and whispering a lot, who strangely and suddenly left less than 10 minutes before the shooting began. There was the TSA lady and her boyfriend who reported two Hispanic ladies at the rear of the venue, 45 minutes before the attack, saying, "These stupid effing white people, they deserve this. Like shooting fish in a barrel." There was the white male at the bus stop at 10:03 p.m. who said, "Say a prayer before what's about to happen tonight," while looking up at the Mandalay Bay. There was the Uber passenger named Tony who told his driver Friday night on the way to the MGM Grand that Vegas wasn't ready for a terrorist attack like Paris and Belgium. And there was a different Uber driver who drove a man and a woman to the Mandalay Bay and says the man commented on the Mandalay Bay area for a terrorist attack. He thinks it might have been Paddock himself, with a woman. There was the man in a plaid shirt who went up to two girls working the main gate at Route 91 on Saturday night and told them, "Be safe tomorrow, I don't want you to get hurt," while giving them a slight hug. Finally, there was the witness who was staying at the Mandalay Bay and met a group of people at the pool who he ran into later at Harley-Davidson across the street, where one of them received a text message saying there was going to be a shooting. The witness asked him if he was going to call the police and he said no. "You just can't make this kind of stuff up,"